Very good evening to everybody. Today, I am very excited because I have a very special guest with me today. And today, we are talking about something related to entrepreneurship, but not the flashy, very good things that we all see on media, we read on e magazines or paper. So, we will discover the real truth, the real science, how a business works, how entrepreneurship, what it is all about. So, I have an expert today, and also let me tell you that this is again a author special episode because I will reveal who is my guest, and he actually needs no introduction, but then I will formally do it. So let me go ahead and you will know why this is an author's special episode as well. So I have Professor Dhruv Nath with me, who is a professor at MDI Gurgaon. Earlier, he was also chairman of the Center for Incubation and Entrepreneurship at MDI. He is also an angel investor and a director with Lead Angels Network. In the process, Dr. Nath has mentored over 25 digital business startups such as Trivon, MyCute Office, Planet Superheroes, Quaka, Belita, GameXS, Graymeter, Aha Taxis, etc. Earlier, he spent 20 years with NIIT, where he launched and headed several new initiatives such as the National Institute of Sales and LEDA. His last assignment at NIIT was creating and heading NIIT's e-business practice as senior vice president. Dr. Nath has been a consultant to the top management of several organizations such as Glaxo, Apollo Hospitals, Gillette, Nestle, Indian Oil Corporation, Bajaj Auto, etc., in the strategic use of IT for business. He has also conducted top management programs in e governance for the Prime Minister of Namibia and the Chief Minister of Delhi. Dr. Nath has written three books published by McGraw Hill Education, and he is currently writing a book as well as a series of articles for startups and investors. He has a BTech in electrical engineering and a PhD in computer science area, both from IIT Delhi. So, no more waiting, and I will invite Professor Dhruv here with us.
Thank
Very
you.
good evening,
Thank
Dhruv. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation and being on Eclectica. It's an honor and pleasure for me to have you on this show today.
thank you. Delighted to be here. Thank you, Gargi.
So I think I'm very excited to have you for two reasons. One, to learn something, the truth, the science behind how businesses work in a very short span of time, as well as my audience are also here to learn from you. Another, being a science enthusiast, or I'm an avid reader, so I read many types of books, and I landed up on your two books, which has helped me a lot, and I have a copy of both, which I really I enjoyed. I the dream founder and both the funding your startup. I think this is a groundbreaking book. Before you speak, I'm speaking too much, but then I want to tell it because this is really a very helpful, like entrepreneurs who are starting or who are early career entrepreneurs like myself. So they are. It is so simple way it is represented. I find it is very interesting. So we will talk more and we will know about how you came up with these books and what was your idea behind writing this. So, Dhruv, first of all, uh, I would like to understand that you have been consultant to so many big names that we just heard when we were just introducing you. So, how was your journey when you started, like when you were just a student? Have you ever envisioned that you are going to land up as a consultant of such big companies? What, if you can brief us about your journey first?
Okay. So, first of all, thanks, Gargi, for having me here. It's a lot of fun. I must clarify a couple of things. You mentioned that I was a consultant to the Prime Minister of Namibia, but after that, he lost the election.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was also a consultant to the Chief Minister of Delhi, but after that, she died. So my message to your all your viewers out there is: you want to take my advice, you want to take my suggestions, it is your it is your call. This is my background.
Okay.
Okay. So so as a student, well, I was a student at IIT Delhi. I did two
Right.
degrees, so I had a BTech and a PhD. and I spent about 20 years in the IT industry. And after which I got sick of chasing business targets, so I became a professor at MBA. I, by the way, have retired now, so I was
Right.
a prof till about 2 years back.
Hmm.
I think my journey, one thing which and that's a message I would like to leave for your audience, all the people who are watching this. Whatever you do in life, you must enjoy it. You must have a lot of fun. Earning money is not the only thing in life, right? Rising in an organization is not the only thing. Do what you enjoy doing. And fortunately, I think whatever I have done, I have enjoyed. When I joined NIT, I got a chance to work with all these senior guys from Gillette and Glaxo and Hindustan Lever. It was really enjoyable. I learned a lot from them. When I was a professor, I started advising students on running their startups and building their startups and so on. That was equally enjoyable, and I learned a lot from that. And by the way, all that has gone into my books. And
Okay.
now I'm very heavily into writing books, which and also investing as an angel investor. So I've invested in about 20 companies, and I keep learning, and I keep enjoying myself. So I think the key message I have for everybody here is, don't chase money, don't chase position, don't chase wealth. Do what you like doing in life, and you will have fun. And when you look back at your life at, let's say, 70 or 80, you will believe that you've done what you wanted to do. So I think it's very, very important to do what you like doing.
Correct, correct. Thank you, Dhruv, for that wonderful message out here. So, one thing will just interests me, like they, like for example, I come from a science as well as healthcare background. To be very honest, at least I all my education has been in India, so that is from that perspective. I would like to keep this question to you: is that we when we come up, like when we study, it's a completely different ball game of addressing different diseases and stuff. But to be very honest, if we are starting on the day we finish our degree and we want to do something on our own, practically we have no formal education in our entire curriculum, right? School you forget, right? I mean, say if we take college, as well as like later parts, like for example in dentistry, what happens is like you get a degree and either you purchase a higher degree or whatever you do, ultimately it is a job or you open up a business, that is your dental clinic, that is absolutely a business. So
Mhm.
my question is that if somebody is wanting to start anything, it's not only about a clinic or something. Being I want to be an entrepreneur or I want to do a startup. If this is something which is flashing in somebody's mind, what do you think would be the three most important thing that they should learn first and then step in? That would be my question to you. Yes.
Okay. So, a couple of comments. It's a very broad question, so I'll
Hmm.
give you broad answers.
Yes.
So, first of all, I think each person needs to decide for himself or herself whether he is or she is fit for an entrepreneur's role, and I'll explain why. And this is not formal learning. This is
Hmm.
something each person has to ask himself or herself. First of all, you must remember one thing: starting a business and running a business is an absolutely full time occupation. You can't say, look, I have a 9 to 5 career, and at 5 o'clock I switch off, and then, I will watch movies, or I'll watch Netflix, or I'll go for parties and have beer or whatever. No, you are essentially on call round the clock, right?
Right.
So, therefore, starting a business, and I will quote uh, one of the very well-known businessmen in the country today,
Hmm.
Sanjeev Bikhchandani, who is the founder of Naukri.com. Okay.
Right.
i have I have had the privilege of interviewing him for my book, for
Wow.
my earlier books, and I will now be writing the next book where the entire Naukri story will be available. So he says, starting a business is a lifetime commitment. It is not a part time thing. And you will have a lot of ups and downs. You will have a lot of, you know, tough situations, you'll have situations where everything is going wrong. For example, I mean, you people are in the life sciences area. Those 2 years, 2020 and 2021 were terrible years because of COVID. And
Yes.
so many businesses just had to close down. There was no choice. You will face situations like this. You will face situations where you need money and money is not available, right? You will
Mm.
face situations where you think you have a wonderful product, but
Mm.
the market is not willing to buy it. So I think it is very, very important for people to realize it's a full time job and it has ups and downs. You have to be extremely passionate about what you want to do. Only then will you be able to navigate through these ups and downs. If you're not passionate about it, you'll give up. You'll say, look, to hell with it. I mean, it's too
Right.
much trouble, too many complications, and so on. So, in fact, we are investors, and when we look at any founder, whether he is or she is fresh from college or experienced
Mm.
or whatever, I think the biggest thing we look for is passion.
Mm.
And I will say this to all people who want to start something on their own:
Right.
please only do something that you're really passionate about, right? So for example, there are some people who are extremely passionate about children's education. There are some people who are very, very passionate about healthcare in rural India, and that's a huge opportunity, as you know, right?
Right.
If you're passionate about it, you will be willing to spend that kind of time. You will be willing to go through those ups and downs, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that you need to, of course, take care of. So that's number one. Number two, obviously, you have to be willing to dirty your hands. You know, as a business person, as a founder, you cannot say, look, this I will delegate to this manager, this I will delegate to this manager. You can do that in a job. You can't do that in your business. You have to do everything. I'll give you a very simple example, right? And in fact, I have a lot of stories, so maybe I'll start sharing my stories here. There is a very interesting story about a company called Go Desi,
Mm-hmm.
Godesi, right?
Okay.
This guy is his name is Vinay Kothari, and he has created this brand called Go Desi, and he basically connects with farmers. So he partners with farmers, and the farmers grow whatever fruit of different kinds, and the
Mm-hmm.
farmer himself processes that fruit and create sweets and candies out of it, right? And this
Oh,
guy does the branding and marketing, etc., of it, right? It's a very successful startup. It is the biggest, I think, in the online, in the confectionery space. He's the biggest on Amazon, right?
all
And by
right.
the way, this is there as part of this book, The Dream Founder. His
Yes.
story is
Yes.
there. Now, what I want to, the reason why I brought up the story was when this guy started. See,
Mm.
he's in Bangalore, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he was selling online, but he also had to he also had to make his products available in Kirana shops
Correct.
across the city of Bangalore.
Hmm.
And initially, he would go on a second-hand scooter, which was borrowed from his sister, and he would go from Kirana shop to Kirana shop, personally trying to convince each shop owner, boss, please keep my products, right?
Mm.
Now, that's a huge, I mean, thing he did, because he realized, number one, if he didn't do it, he wouldn't know what the objections were. He would not know how he would need to sell. And therefore, tomorrow, when he had a team which had to sell, how could he train them? He couldn't,
Correct.
right? So he said, look, I have to get my hands dirty. He went on a scooter personally. He was the only sales guy. And he went from shop to shop. And many Kirana shop owners said, no, nothing doing. I will not keep it. He lived
Mm-hmm.
with that. So I think the second very, very important thing is people have to be willing to dirty their hands.
Mm.
That's extremely important. The third important issue is, yes, I agree with what you said. It is not just enough to understand your subject.
Hmm.
You need to understand business as well, right?
Right.
And
Right.
unfortunately, there are formal courses, there are MBA courses all over the place. They will give you theory, they will give you some exposure to cases and so on. But the best way to learn is really hands on. Hands on, when you're actually facing the music. And I would say one good way to do that is
Hmm.
maybe after you've got your PhD or your BTech, that may not be the best time to start. You start by taking up a job in a company in a similar area, so you
Right.
learn, and
Hmm.
you learn at somebody else's cost, right? You contribute, hopefully you contribute, and you learn, right? And when you learn, once you learn, you realize how the business is running. That's probably the best way. That's a practical way to understand how business is run. And when you're ready, maybe a year and a half, that's probably when you can actually launch your startup. Get the idea, create the concept, get the idea, keep working on your idea in parallel while you're doing your job. But I think it's important to understand business before you actually start off.
Correct, correct. I completely agree with that because this is very important and this is all about hands-on. There is no theory in business.
That's
There
right.
is no theory in business. So,
Absolutely.
Dhruv, coming just interestingly, I haven't read the entire book on this, but I have just started this book. So, this is a very good one where you talk. I mean, you talk about funding, the concepts of funding, and how the entire process I mean, what is the process? So. I mean, there are a lot of myths and facts that runs in the market regarding this getting funded or not getting funded. So,
Mm.
what is that basic criteria when you are funding somebody as an investor, or say, for example, we apply for any kind of government grants also? So, is there a commonality between these two type of funding, or is it? I mean, what I'm trying to ask is that what is that one thing that everybody looks into before they put their money, whether it is government grant or whether it is investor money? So that is something which I want to know.
Okay. So, these are actually two very different things, and the criteria are very different, right? Whether
Okay.
it is government grants or funding. And when
Hmm.
I talk about funding, I'm talking about equity funding, which basically means you're getting investors who
Hmm.
are taking up shares, who are buying shares in your company, right?
Right.
I'll talk about these two separately, right?
Sure.
So, if you look at government grants,
Hmm.
the government is basically, and I think government grants are very, very important in your kind of field,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that's a very high priority, right? Healthcare, anything to do with biotech, anything to do with life sciences is a very
Yes.
huge priority and a very huge opportunity.
Hmm.
The government will typically fund uh, a project where they believe there is a strong need, and where they believe the founder understands the project,
Hmm.
and the founder is actually solving a problem for which there is a large need, so that the government will fund. The government is not really interested in looking at whether this will be a successful business or not. I think that's important, right?
Yes.
Government will basically look at your project. So if you're
Hmm.
doing something, whether you succeed or not, if you're doing something which the government believes can help people,
Hmm.
even if you're not making a profit or making a very marginal profit, government is very happy, because they would like to promote this, right?
Promote this.
And as you know, there is this BIRAC, which
Hmm.
gives a lot of grants in your
Correct.
kind of field, and I have
Correct.
seen grants which are as large as 1 crore, 1.5
Yes.
crore, which is
Correct.
huge, and it gives you a chance to do your research, it gives you a chance to develop your product and so on.
Hmm.
So that is one part, but that does not necessarily mean that the project is commercially viable. That's something the government does not look into, right?
Hmm.
If you look at the investor, that's a very
Hmm.
separate category. See,
Hmm.
why does the investor invest? The investor invests to make money, and the only way you're going to make money is, this is where he invests. The
Hmm.
company does well, and the shares that he bought, at the
Hmm.
time he invested, he's able to sell those shares to the next investor at a profit. But that can only happen if it's a commercially viable business. It's a good, solid business which is growing, and which is getting revenues, and hopefully also making profits. Right. So there are two entirely different things.
Hmm.
Look at the investor.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, since I have had a fair amount of, I've spent a lot of time with young founders,
Yeah.
looking at startups, and I've seen a lot of startups that have failed, and I've also seen a lot of startups which have succeeded. Right. So
Hmm.
I have done along with my close friend Sushanto Mitra, who's, by the way, the co-author of that
Yes,
book,
co-author.
which you mentioned. So we are both from Lead Angels Network.
Okay,
We fund startups, we fund founders, right? We fund
right.
promising businesses. So what we have done is we have actually created a evaluation framework, which, number one, the founder can use to figure out whether it's likely to be successful or not, and number
Okay,
two, the investor can use to figure out whether he should invest in that company or not. Right? So I'll
fantastic.
share with you that framework. It'll take me about 3-4 minutes. And
Definitely.
we at Lead Angels use that all the time to evaluate our companies to invest in. And a lot of founders have now started using it as well. So the framework, I'll just share it with you. It's written here. It's called Persistent. Right? And this,
Oh,
by the way, is part of both books. So both the books talk about persistent.
yes.
Now, let me explain what this is. So, persistent is basically an acronym, which
Okay,
means each letter of the word persistent. Sorry, I'll just switch on the fan. Give me a minute.
sure.
Yeah, Delhi's become a little hot. Not hot enough for an AC, but too hot for no fan. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is an acronym, and therefore each letter stands for something that the founder needs to do. Right? So P stands for problem, which means you've got to be solving a problem for somebody, for some customer, otherwise you don't have a business. Right?
Mm-hmm.
E stands for earnings model, which means not only should you be solving a problem, but somebody should be willing to pay you for solving that problem. Right? That's the E. The next letter, I'll come back to R later. The next letter is S. S stands for size of the market. Obviously, your market size has to be large enough, otherwise, you will not grow. You will be stagnant, right? And sometimes you'll find that you have a very large market, but it's a very crowded market, meaning too many competitors.
Hmm.
And when you have too many competitors, everybody is competing, everybody is giving discounts. So, I mean, most people will not survive. So, never enter such a market where you have too much competition, especially giant competitors. Correct? Instead, what you should do is you should identify a subset of that market which is not crowded. And I can share stories about this if you're interested.
Sure.
Subset of that market which I call a niche, and that's the N. So that's not crowded, but it has a large enough size itself. Okay, so that's the N in persistent. Then the next S is scalability, and scalability means the ability to grow and the ability to grow rapidly,
Hmm.
because particularly in some businesses and when you're looking at investor money, everybody wants fast growth, and particularly in today's world of the internet, if you don't grow fast, there's somebody else who will grow faster than you. He'll kill you, he'll eat into your market share. Correct?
Correct.
Scalability becomes extremely important. Next issues are, which is risks, and every business will have risks, obviously, and the biggest risk is the risk of competition, because of which you need to have what I call an entry barrier. That means something which prevents competitors from coming in, right? And that's the E, the first E, sorry, the second E in persistent. And if you have an innovative solution, for example, if you have a healthcare product or a life sciences product, and you got a patent for it, that's a very good innovative solution which the other guy cannot copy legally. Correct? So that's a very good entry barrier. Right? So I've talked about 8 letters in this word persistent. The last two, one is T, which is the team, and that's very important. The team of founders.
Hmm.
And go back, you know, what what should the founder be? A, very passionate. B, willing to dirty his or her hands. C, knowledgeable about the business, right? And
Hmm.
it's a long term commitment. It's not, let me get in, let me try it for 2 years and then quit. And a person who doesn't give up, who keeps trying, who keeps trying, who keeps pivoting all the time. And the last T, which is the last word in persistent, is what I call traction, which is, are you getting revenues? Are those revenues increasing month on month? Are you getting
Hmm.
customers, right? So that is the persistent model. I would very strongly suggest to all your viewers, if somebody wants to create a business and they already have a concept, they should try and evaluate their startup within this model. So then they'll come to where it has shortcomings, right? Because as investors also we use the same model. So
Hmm.
that's typically what we do.
Amazing. I think I was going to ask you, like, everybody tells about, when it comes to entrepreneurship, three things most of the industry people that I have learned from through these interviews and other interactions, like, they will tell that you should be patient, you should be committed, you should be persistent. So I think nobody could better explain the word, what persistent means, as you did, and this is a very valuable information that you shared, and I think it is helpful for people like me, as well as for the audience or anybody who is trying to even step into the field, or they're thinking about doing something in the space of business of their out of their passion. So
Mm.
thank you, Dhruv, that was wonderful.
Sure.
So Dhruv, one more thing I just want to ask is that, when it comes in starting a business which is not in my domain, like, for example, we have seen that people who are kind of serial entrepreneurs, or they do different types of businesses. So is it a good idea that a person, say, suppose, for example, let's take my example. Say I am from healthcare. Now
Mm.
I want to do a business in a clothing business, apparel business.
Mm.
So because you said that one should be passionate, and one should understand the business. So is it like that, as a healthcare professional, I should not start an apparel business, or is it like I can, but if I want to do, then what should be my first teachings that I should take, or what should I learn first before I step into? I mean,
Okay.
I'm trying to ask you that whether one can go in a different dimension as well, in spite of a typical educational or professional background.
Oh, so you want to go into fashion, is it?
No, no, I am just, that was just a casual question. Yes,
Okay.
definitely. I do want to do that. Definitely. That should be a honest answer from my side. Yes.
Okay. So first of all, um, like I mentioned, do something you're passionate about. Yes, a lot of people will have a degree in one subject, but they are passionate about something completely different.
Hmm.
Follow your passion 100%, 800% agree to. However,
Hmm.
if you want to create a successful business out of it,
Hmm.
you cannot be jumping all the time. So you cannot say, today I will do fashion, tomorrow I will do e-commerce, day after, 3 years later, I will do, manufacturing of drones or whatever. No, it doesn't work. Decide what your passion is, stick to that for a long time to come. Number one. Number two, obviously, if your qualifications are in one field,
Hmm.
you don't know enough to get into the other field. Right? You don't
Correct.
know enough. And it is never a good idea to get into a field which you don't know at all. So you must learn enough about that field. And there is another interesting option. The
Hmm.
other option is you get a co founder. So if there are two people, so let's say you understand, for example, you understand business, right?
Hmm.
And
Okay.
there is a co-founder who doesn't understand business but understands fashion, and you get along well with this person. You have a similar kind of vision.
Hmm.
You trust each other. Team up. That person contributes the fashion know-how. You contribute the business know-how.
Hmm.
Correct. So
Correct.
that's a good option. That's a very good option.
Hmm.
And over time you will learn fashion as well. However, if you have done life sciences and you don't have any background of business or technology
Hmm.
and you want to get into fashion, then you are actually adding no value at all. At all. Right? You're just I mean, life sciences won't help in fashion, no business knowledge, it won't help, no programming tech know-how, it won't help at all. In which
Hmm.
case you will need to spend some time understanding this new domain area, and that's
Correct.
important. That's not just 15 days, it'll have to be several months, maybe more than that, several months. Understand that area thoroughly, because only
Hmm.
then will you know what the opportunities are, you will know what the problems are, you will know what customers seem to like, what customers don't like, and so on. Without doing that, without any background at all, it is not a good idea to jump in. Yes,
Exactly.
follow your passion, but spend time to understand what is required to pursue that passion.
Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you so much. So, interesting question was just running in my mind when you were explaining I mean, the abbreviation or acronym persistent. Like now we are, like you talk about evaluation of the, like evaluation of the person themselves and evaluation of the business or the plan. So the thing is that the way this AI boom has started, I think it's just a hype. I feel because AI is not a old, I mean, it's not a new thing, but
Mhm,
yes, the kind of traction it has got today,
mhm,
and people are fearing that many kinds of jobs might not exist uh,
mhm,
because of the intervention of AI. So
mhm,
in this context, so what I feel, this AI thing, again there is a kind of transition, a big transition, which might we will be experiencing in the industry. I don't know, I might be wrong. So
mhm,
so when somebody is trying to get into a new startup business, and
mhm,
say whether it is life science, apparel, or whatever business it be, so is it a good idea to actually go with the flow, where we should also learn about AI, also learn about digital marketing, and also learn about stuff related to IT, which, I mean, I'm trying to say, should we go for a combinatorial stuff, or it should be like we should follow our traditional path and let all things that doesn't come to our understanding, let it go. So what is that, according to you, Dhruv?
Okay, so first of all, since you're talking of technology, right?
Hmm.
You spoke about AI, you spoke about digital marketing.
Yeah.
There is one warning I have for your viewers.
Mm-hmm.
As an investor, so by
Right.
the way, one of the biggest components of AI is what we call machine learning, right?
Yes. Correct.
And machine learning, I don't know if your viewers, all of them are familiar. I'll just give you a quick background. Machine learning is basically something where you get the computer
Hmm.
to keep feeding in more and more data into the computer, and the computer begins to identify this data, and finally the computer is able to give more and more accurate answers. For example, very very trivial example, um, you feed in two pictures into a computer, one of a man, one the face of a man, one the face of a woman, and you tell the computer this is a man, this is a woman, right? Then you feed in a completely unknown picture, and you ask the computer, is it a man, is it a woman? There is a 50% chance it will be correct, 50% chance it will be wrong, right? But if you feed in, let's say, 50 pictures of men and 50 pictures
Hmm.
of women, and the computer is programmed in such a way that it can identify which
Hmm.
features are common in men and which features are more common in women, then the
Hmm.
probability of the accuracy becomes higher, correct? If you feed in 1 lakh pictures of men and 1 lakh pictures of women, the accuracy is phenomenal, because by now the computer has learned, okay, look, in most cases, men have shorter hair, women have longer hair. In most
Correct.
cases, women have, facial hair. Sorry,
Hmm.
men will have facial hair, women will not have facial hair, and so on and so forth. So that is machine learning, where the computer is programmed. There is a model, we call it a model. It is programmed to keep learning as it gets in more and more data. Now, machine learning has become very popular. One of the problems I have seen, one of the problems I have seen is a lot of startups come to us and say, and they are making their presentation, they want funding. Sir, my startup is using machine learning. So we asked them, look, where is machine learning being used?
Hmm.
And when we question the person, we realize machine learning is not required. It's absolutely not required. Why
Hmm.
was machine learning brought in? Only to impress the investor, saying that, look, we are using high tech. That is absolutely stupid, for two, three reasons. One is you are bringing in technology for the sake of bringing in technology, and not because it is actually adding value, right?
Hmm.
There are enough projects where technology adds value, where machine learning adds value. For example, in the agriculture area, there
Hmm.
are drones which which take photographs of farms and fields, and
Okay.
therefore look at what is happening to the crop. That is then processed using machine learning, and advice is given to the farmer. That's a very, very good, very practical application. But there are
Correct.
many places where machine learning is used purely because the founder wants to impress the investor. So
Hmm.
a, you're wasting technology where it is not required, and b, the investor will see through it, and then your credibility is gone. So I think the key message I have, again, for
Yes.
all your viewers is, sure, by all means use technology. There is AI, there is machine learning, there is virtual reality, there is augmented reality, but use it only if it actually adds value, and if it is really part of your offering, not because you have to add technology, and not because you have to impress the investor. That is
Hmm.
foolish. Don't do that. But if it helps in adding value to your business, by all means, let's do it.
Thank you, Dhruv, because I asked you this question because now in healthcare also, people talk a lot about AI, whether they understand or not, because that I have also seen, though I'm also not trained in AI. I have just a basic understanding, but then these things are happening. So that's a very,
Sorry.
straightforward,
So
yeah.
just to give you a very simple example of AI in health or machine learning in health,
Mhm. Mhm.
the problem is, so let's say you have an X-ray taken of the chest,
Mhm.
right?
Correct. Mhm.
And it goes to the doctor, and the doctor normally, the senior doctor, the consultant doesn't have time to go through so many X-rays. Uh,
Exactly.
so what can be done is, you have X-rays taken,
Hmm.
and you feed that into a machine learning program, right? The
Correct.
machine learning program, if it has got a lot of X-rays over the past, lakhs and lakhs of X-rays,
Hmm.
it is able to figure out the probability of a problem, right?
Hmm.
So if the machine learning says, look, there is almost less than 1% probability that there is a defect, or something wrong with the lungs or whatever, then you don't waste the consultant's time. You don't go there, and the patient doesn't need to go there. Then it
Correct.
can just go to a junior doctor, right? Now,
Exactly.
in that kind of situation, machine learning is a huge benefit, because it
Hmm.
basically helps doctors. All
Correct.
I'm saying is, don't use it purely because technology has to be used.
Yes, yes. So, coming back to your books, Dhruv, and your book writing project. So, that is something which is very interesting. So, I would really like to understand that what inspired you, because your journey has been fantastic. It's a very didactic journey, and now you invest in startups. But what was your inspiration behind starting or putting all your experiences inside these two books, what you have written now?
Yeah.
The dream founder and the funding your startup. So
Yeah.
what was your inspiration behind this?
Actually, I've written a few books even before that, but let me talk about these two. So at
Okay.
this time, I was a professor at MDA, professor of management, and I would advise a lot of students. I would mentor a lot of students and alumni on their startups and their strategies and so on. And this used to be real fun, because I would, we have an open air canteen in MDI, and I
Okay.
would sit in the open air canteen, and we would have samosas and chai, and we would discuss strategies threadbare. Now, I realized that if I do this, I mean, I can probably meet maybe two founders in a day, maximum three founders in a day, not more.
Right.
Whereas by now I had gained so much know how from all these young founders, I wanted to share it with many more. So,
Hmm.
which is why I said, okay, let me write a book on this. And that's why I wrote a book. And fortunately, the first book I wrote, it did very well. I think it sold about nearly 10,000 copies now. Uh,
Fantastic.
and so rather than catching, two founders every day, today I can catch thousands of founders, because all they have to do is read the book. And which is why I followed up with the second book, which has
Hmm.
also begun to do well. And now I'm writing more books on the same subject. So essentially, the idea is, when I spend time with young founders, young people, there is so much I learn. I wanted to
Hmm.
share that with as many people as I could, and that's one reason why I'm on this broadcast with you.
I know.
So that's why I started writing, and it's a lot of fun.
So so these books are already published, and if you can tell us that where, because it is available, they are available on Amazon. That I know
Amazon,
because I got it
Amazon,
from there.
yeah.
So is there any other your website or any other places that
No,
people can?
I don't have a website. Most bookshops would have them. have them. So
Okay.
I would imagine places like Crossword or Midlands or who are the other big booksellers? Anyway, every city will have big booksellers, and most of them would have them. Many airport bookstalls would have them. So if you're traveling, in
Right.
fact, many of these airport bookstalls will have signed copies of my books, especially
Oh,
in Delhi
wow.
and Bombay, because whenever I travel, I sign copies there. So it's available there,
Hmm.
and people are welcome. But Amazon, anyway, it's available.
Yes, Amazon,
Yeah,
anybody can access.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So that is fantastic. So what is your immediate next book project, if you want to, I mean, if it is feasible for you to share, what
Sure,
is the
sure.
next?
Oh, I'm very transparent. So there is one book which is about to come out, which
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with startups.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the background.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, I lived in the hills. Okay, the hills of Himachal, a small town in Himachal,
Hmm.
and I have written a book based on my life there. So it's a book of pure humorous short stories about life in the hills, right? That should be
And
coming out in I think 2 months time, 1 month time, and nothing to
okay.
do with startup, but it's a funny book. Then I'm currently writing a book on. See, so far I've talked about startups. Now
Uh-huh.
I'm writing a book about giants in the world of the internet, right? So people like Naukri.
Yeah.
Naukri is a giant. So now my next book, so far it was about tiny companies. This one will be about huge market leaders in the internet space. So that's the next project. I think it will come out maybe in about 6 months' time.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
will keep writing as I go on till I'm 100. After that, I'll see.
No, I'm sure. I mean, your inspiration, or the way you are trying to put out this entire knowledge through books, I think this is the best thing that you are doing, because I think this is accessible and anybody can get knowledge from, get learning instead of hunting knowledge here and there. This is particularly I liked your Dream Founder because I have read it fully for this at this time.
Okay.
As I said, the second one I am on it, because
Okay.
it actually captures the real stories of real people. It is not something which is imaginary.
So
And
these are,
the
yeah, these are my personal experiences with companies that I have either mentored or invested in or not invested in, and why.
and
So
that's
it's
why
all
today,
personal experience.
yeah, today that's why I mentioned that this episode has brutal truth. The only reason is that because we always see the flashy things and we get swayed away. But I think these real stories actually help us to understand also how we should proceed if we are inside an entrepreneurial journey, or we are thinking to start. So thank you so much, Dhruv. It was
Sure.
wonderful speaking with you, and it is again a privilege and honor for me to have you on Eclectica. This is a big thing for me and for my audience and for our entire show. So, and before we leave, I would request you to uh, give your final message to the audience who are aspiring, because here we have a lot of freshers who follow us on this channel. They are still confused because nowadays entrepreneurship also I feel has become a buzzword. So I would it would be very nice when a message from person like you, expert like you, comes out, how they should follow their career, and what exactly how they can overcome this stage of confusion. So that is something which
My
you
very
say.
simple message to everybody is just follow your passion. If you like photography, get into photography. If you
Mm,
like, travel, get into travel. I
mm,
mean, I've seen people who follow their passion. They're very, very happy doing what they're doing. And see, money is not the only thing in life. Once you're following your passion, you must remember one thing:
mhm,
everybody has at least a 40-year career ahead of them, right? So you typically will finish your degree in your early 20s, maybe 21, 22, and you'll go on till about 60 or maybe a little beyond that, right? So that's about a 40-year career. If you are doing something which you don't like doing,
mhm.
or which you're doing purely because it gets you more money or it gets you stress, it doesn't make sense, because then you're unhappy for 40 years. Instead, if you follow what you really like doing, money will come. I mean, even if you like photography, money comes. There are enough opportunities in photography. So I think the basic issue is each person has to figure out what they want to do in life. Of course, if the only thing they want to do in life is to sit back and watch Netflix all day, that will not get you anywhere. But if you want to do, what you want to do in life is to make movies for Netflix, sure, follow that. So I think identify your passion, follow your passion, and you'll make money. I don't know how much money you'll make, but you'll be happy in your life, and I think that's far more important.
Exactly. Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you so much for your time. I know you are a very busy person, but it was wonderful. It was wonderful. I hope
I'm
we
not
meet in the future
I'm not
as well.
very busy. My No, no, I'm not very busy, but my wife thinks I'm very busy.
That that
And I,
was very funny.
no, no, and I don't try and change that thought.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel I'm busy.
I think you give a good tip to other husbands as well who might be listening this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dhruv. So take care, and thank you everybody for joining here. And you will get this books as well if you want. So I'll put the links here in the description of this video once it is over. So you purchase this book; it will open up your mind that much. I can tell because I have read myself. So it is fantastic. Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Gargi, and good to be with all of you today.